Hello, people. Hello, YouTube. How are we? Just thought I'd jump on for a little late one and test my test what my Mac is like for streaming. Just let Twitter know. How are we, people? Welcome back to For the Reds. Give me a sec and we'll get going. I always do this. I should really have my stuff in order first, shouldn't I? Right, well. Liverpool. Rodrygo. What do we think? Been a lot of talk about the deal and about Liverpool Football Club being interested in Rodrygo. I am slightly sceptical of the situation, and I want to explain to you why. So I'm skeptical that Liverpool have an interest in him beyond sort of beyond Luis Diaz leaving. So let me explain. I'm not sure if this is a case of Liverpool, would sign the player regardless of the situation with Luis Diaz, whereas it feels a little bit like, to me anyway, it feels a little bit like Hugo Ekitike is going to be signed regardless of the situation with Darwin Núñez. If Darwin Núñez was to stay, we'd still sign Hugo Ekitike. Now I know, because of the unfortunate situation with Diogo Jota, that's a little bit different because there's a striker spot open that we thought weren't going to open, whereas with Luis Diaz, you've got Diaz and Gakpo both on that side. So I'd imagine it all comes down to Luis Diaz leaving, and that we'll probably need to see him leave first before we can pursue that any further. But a top player, a player who is of my interest massively, a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful footballer who I think would absolutely light up Anfield, and in my opinion needs a Liverpool Football Club, needs a move like that to really, take him to the heights that he deserves to be at, because he should be one of the best footballers in the world, because he is one of the best footballers in the world in his position, in my opinion. And at Real Madrid, he's just simply not going to get those plaudits because of the fact of who they have at the club as well. So it makes it difficult for him. But anyway, so we're gonna go through the comments. We'll go through anything that we see in the YouTube chat, and we'll also speak before, like we did to the TikTok. Same message again. One sec, let me shut the door. Same message again. If you are watching on TikTok and you can come over to YouTube, I would really appreciate it. Come and give us a watch. Come and give us a like. Come and subscribe. Pop into the chat. Ask your questions there. But to start off with, Rodrygo will be a massive fan favourite, and get Gay in as well. We're sorted for this season. The YouTube is For the Reds. If you go into the bio, of my TikTok page, and then you click on like the little link tree thing. The YouTube is there. Head over. We're live streaming right on there now. Subscribe. That's what we're trying to grow. That'd be amazing if you could come support us over there. I would really appreciate it. We're just having a little go of streaming on the Mac instead of like the webcam setup and everything like that, because when I go away, the reason I had to stop doing For the Reds when I first started was finding the time to do that as well as work and other things was really difficult. So I'm trying to find a situation like how I do with For the Reds TikTok, where I can just do it really quick and simple. And hopefully this is the way to do it. Streaming straight from the Mac on OBS without any plugins or anything like that would be ideal. One sec, my phone has come out of charge for some reason. A second. There we go. So yeah, if you can go over to the YouTube, smash us a like, a subscribe, it'd be really appreciated. Hi Tom, how are we, mate? You okay? And as I say, we are discussing Rodrygo. It's gone a little bit quiet on the Hugo Ekitike like front, hasn't it? I was expecting it to be a little bit more gun ho tonight, you know, with bids flying in and news left, right, and centre, but it's not been that case so far, which is interesting, as I really thought that was going to be the theme of the night, to be honest. What we'll do is we'll go to Twitter, actually. We'll have a little look on Twitter, see what's popping off. At the moment, there is a little bit of Anthony Gordon talk as well, so we will also go through that. As I think the Anthony Gordon situation is interesting, definitely interesting to me anyway, as he was a player that Liverpool nearly signed, if you remember, last season due to Newcastle's PSR issues. Now, it was rumoured that Anthony Gordon was telling friends in the England camp whilst they were away on international duty that he was joining his boyhood club. He was coming off the back end of a really good season as well for Newcastle. And then obviously at the last moment they were able to sell Elliot Anderson and Yakuba Minter to get themselves out of PSR issues. However, the sort of noises around Anthony Gordon never disappeared, and I thought they would disappear, but they've not, which I find really interesting, because that probably shows just how much Liverpool, you know, rate the player, and it's easy to forget the good season because the recency bias tells us that last season wasn't one of his strongest, whereas you look at his overall Newcastle stint and it's not been that bad at all. So, you know, we can't sit here in one hand and say, well, I really trust the judges, really trust the judge, a judge of opinion of Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes when it comes to Hugo Ekitike, and then say, oh, actually, I'm not too sure on this one with Anthony Gordon. If their data is still tracking him and they still want the player, then there must be a reason. What I would say is, and I'm a big Anthony Gordon fan, by the way. What I would say is, I would feel slightly disappointed and a little bit, not deflated, but a little bit like, what could have been, if it goes from Isak to Ekitike, which I'm still a massive fan of, by the way, and Rodrygo to Gordon. I feel like you've gone from two players of a brilliant age, they're ready to go and fire on all fronts for the Champions League and the Premier League, to two players who are it's probably still a little bit of a risk. Got a massive ceiling and loads of potential, but still probably feel like a tiny bit of a risk, at least, for me anyway. But yeah, let me know what you think. If you're in the TikTok or you're in the YouTube, let me know in the chat what you think about the potential of Anthony Gordon over Rodrygo. And if you are there, I'd really appreciate the likes. If you're watching on YouTube, please give the live stream a like because it helps bump it up to new people. That's how we get to know new people. That's how we build our community. Tom over on TikTok says, if Gordon is available for 70 to 80 million, I'd rather spend that on Rodrygo if he's available. Obviously for the same price. Yeah, I think Liverpool are probably feeling the same. I think the club are currently searching for a price tag around Rodrygo, and then we'll move from there. If it turns out that Rodrygo is, £100 million plus, I'd imagine that'll probably turn the club off. If he's not, however, if he's of a decent price and it's looking like, what Real Madrid want for Rodrygo is what we can ask for Diaz, then I think we've got a lot more of a chance then of it, becoming a reality. Real Madrid hold the cards in this one for sure. Although it has also been reported in Spain that if they were to sell Vinicius Jr., which is a possibility, Luis Diaz would be their first choice to replace the player. Personally, I don't think it would be. I think if Vinicius goes, then Rodrygo definitely stays. Especially for at least a season and plays that left wing role, or they sign a striker and put Mbappe on the left. Who knows? But I'd be surprised if they sold Vinicius Jr. anyway, myself. Thanks for everyone who's watching. Same again. If you could give us a like, if you could go onto the YouTube, if you're on TikTok, in my bio, and go over there and chat and like the YouTube and subscribe. I'd appreciate it so much because that's what we're really, really trying hard to grow at the moment. Evening, Kenny. How are we, my mate? Tom on TikTok says, I think we will get Hugo now for 80 million plus add-ons, and we might go for Rodrygo next. Definitely looking like Hugo Ekitike is the next move, to Liverpool. Is the next player through the door. I believe they're trying to get it done for this weekend, is what Frankfurt want. And Liverpool are rumoured to be willing to pay close to, if not the full release clause of Hugo Ekitike, which obviously if it's the case, then that gets done and dusted as long as the payment structure is, favourable to both teams. Kenny on TikTok says, who would you prefer, Rodrygo or Gordon? I'm a massive fan of Rodrygo, Ken. Huge fan of Rodrygo, but it's hands down. I'm a huge fan of Gordon, but for me, it's hands down Rodrygo. I think Rodrygo is another level of player. The way that he carries the ball at speed, the way that he glides through players, the way that he can finish left foot, right foot, the way that he can approach the goal, and the composure he has when the ball's at his feet in and around the box, when he's staring down on goalkeeper. I think for me, Rodrygo would absolutely light up Anfield. That's the one, I'll be honest with you, where I've been getting really, really excited about it. Like I was excited about the potential of Isak. I'm really excited about the signing of Hugo Ekitike. I can always get behind young, enthusiastic players who want to come to Liverpool Football Club. There's no danger with that. But for me, I feel like Rodrygo could be. Oh yeah, footballers. When you find that footballer, Florian Wirtz will do the same, where they just get you off your seat. Where you're watching them and you're like, I can watch this kid play football all day. Rodrygo is that player for me. Like I've been watching, games that he's played in the past. I've been watching a few little clips and montages on YouTube. Been a big fan of his, the last couple of years at Real Madrid. Felt like he was always the clutch player that they went to in big moments. Honestly, I think Rodrygo would tear Anfield up. Just check the TikTok comments. Hi, Jono. How are we, mate? You okay? Same again, guys. If you're watching on TikTok, I'd appreciate it. I don't know where it is, like up here, innit? If you clicked on my bio and clicked on the little link tree and came over to the YouTube and you watched on the YouTube and gave that a like and subscribed, that's what we're trying to grow at the moment. We're trying to rebirth for the Reds on YouTube. So, yeah, I'd really appreciate that. Good stuff, Jono. Yeah, I'm not bad, time, mate. Just probably the same as everyone, waiting for more Markham news and, you know, hopefully we've got a club to go back to. But yeah, so there's my 2 cents on Rodrygo and Anthony Gordon. Let's go back over to the to Twitter, see what's going on over here. I'm really surprised at how quiet it's been today. Since this morning, we had this morning's news that, you know, obviously blew up, and the breaking news about Liverpool basically going for Rodrygo. But I'm surprised there's not been too much more. Although, as we mentioned, Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes do like news on a Friday coming out, so keep your eyes peeled tomorrow, 100%. Would I start Bradley or Frimpong at right back? I had this question before, Kenny, actually. For me, it would be Conor Bradley at the moment. Give Frimpong some time to settle in, but yeah, it'd be Conor Bradley. Pierce on TikTok says, Ryan, Hugo is a top player. Looks like Liverpool have been looking at him for the last 3 years. Yeah, well, so Liverpool and Newcastle have both been tracking Hugo Ekitike since his days in France. Reims, or Reims, however you pronounce it. I don't know if you were in the live stream before when we were going over Hugo Ekitike, but leading up to it, you know, I did a little bit of research, looked at some underlying data, watched a few clips, a few games, like not just like montages of goals, like actual games that he's played in. Rewatched a little bit of the Tottenham game in the Europa League, whereas I thought he was actually okay. I am so excited for the signing. So excited. Liverpool played an absolute blinder and put themselves in a situation where we either sign Hugo Ekitike, who would be, you know, most clubs' main striker out there at the moment, or we signed Alexander Isak. Hugo Ekitike, in my opinion, and I love Alexander Isak, I think he's a top footballer, but in my humble opinion, Hugo Ekitike's ceiling is slightly higher than Alexander Isak's. I think he's a little bit better on the ball. I think he's got quite a bit more pace to him, and I think he's got a little bit more of a aerial ability than Alexander Isak. And again, I'm not saying that Isak's bad in the air. I'm not saying that he's not good, you know, at linking up play, and I'm not saying he's slow, because he's none of those things. I just think Hugo Ekitike pips him a little bit. Plus, Hugo Ekitike got more goals and assists last season. How have we been enjoying the streams, by the way? If you are in the YouTube or you are in the TikTok, how have you enjoyed, you know, or have you enjoyed, should I say, me being back? My plan is to try and do at least a stream every single day, whether it's on TikTok or it's on YouTube, ideally both. I think it would also be good to do some watch-alongs when Liverpool are back. When is the game against Milan? Let's have a little look at that. Liverpool fixtures. So we play Yokohama FM on Wednesday, the 30th of July. And we play Milan. Oh, perfect. So we play Milan on Saturday. So it's next Saturday at 12:30. in the afternoon. So I will be doing a live stream watch along of that 100 million %. And then I go away the following day, but falls in perfectly. Pierce likes the TikTok. Cheers, mate. Really appreciate that. I'd also appreciate it if you went into my bio, clicked on the little link tree, and came over to my YouTube channel and subscribed there and watched the live streams there. There's, like I said, that's what we're really trying to grow. Kenny says, brilliant, mate. Could listen and chat about LFC all night. 100%, Ken. 100%. Best club in the world, as they say. July. And we play... Yeah, right. Back to the old TikTok, Twitter. See what's going on there. Yeah, not really much. Nope. Nothing. Oh, I think we should go back to potentially doing some interviews and some shows like that. On the YouTube, we used to do interviews with like other creators where we discuss like FSG. We'd have like someone who was FSG in, someone who was FSG out, and let them sort of like debate each other, and I'd host it. And they used to work really well. They used to be good. So maybe that's something we could go for again. But the stream on YouTube seems to be looking all right on the Mac. I was worried that it wouldn't be as good, but it seems to be doing the job. The audio seems clear. What's it called? The actual look seems to be in HD, which is good. That's important. Is it? Let me just check. Oh, that's right. I hope we are streaming in HD. Let's just go to YouTube and let's find us. Nope. YouTube. No, stop that, would you please? YouTube channel. I honestly hate, really hate Safari at times. It's so annoying. YouTube. Switch account. Let's go to you. Subscriptions. Father ads. How's everyone doing tonight anyway? How are we all? Live. There we go. There we are. All. Live. There we go. There we are. Right, so it seems to be the same as the webcam. It's saying 1080p HD, but it's not quite 1080p HD. Elliot off to West Ham. Yeah, seeing that, Ken. So I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical of if he goes to West Ham, to be honest. I think his level is higher than West Ham. I think his level's much higher than West Ham. So I thought the Brighton move would have been a good move for him. With the way that they like to play football, I really thought the Brighton move would have been a good move for him. I suppose it's still on the cards. Newcastle are apparently interested. I'm not too sure where he fits in at Newcastle. Don't really play with a 10. He could play right wing, but then, you know, they've just signed Anthony Elanga. I'd be shocked personally. Hi, Liam, you alright? No, I play in front of Cooney, so, you know, he doesn't appear because too busy having him in my back pocket. Although you had a stinker the other night, didn't you? 4-1. Would you put a buyback clause in? Not sure, to be honest. Well, there was talk, weren't there, of it was either it was either 40 million with a buyback clause, or it was 50 million without a buyback clause. If it was me personally, I'd do the 50 million. Like, if Harvey Elliott is Harvey Elliott, if you don't fancy him now, I don't see what he's going to do at West Ham or any other club for you to change your tune on him, really. So yeah, if you don't fancy him now, just go and get the maximum amount of money you can for him and spend it elsewhere. What will be interesting to see is if Liverpool are playing Wirtz in this sort of like free role, was that always the plan? And Slot just did not see Harvey Elliott fitting into that, or is it a case of he came onto the scene, Wirtz came onto the scene, and now it makes more sense to go and play that because he's a generational player? It's interesting. Genuinely played well, but 4-1 flattered him. Yeah, I heard that one before, Liam. You sound like Bondi. And Mbeumo better than Mo Salah. Completely agree, mate. Completely agree. Like, Salah's just a poor man's Mbeumo, really. Yeah, 100%, Ken. Just get as much money as we can. Mr. Feeds on YouTube says, I wonder what those people who were talking about FSG out before are thinking. Maybe that's what we need to do, Maybe we need to do that. Maybe we need to do that again. That was an old live stream, that on For the Reds, where we had Ian Young from Redmen TV and Damo from Talking Reds. Damo was fighting the corner of FSG out, and Ian was fighting the corner of like FSG in. I was just hosting and playing referee. Wonder what they are saying now. I've always leant more towards FSG in than FSG out. Cheers for the repost and like, by the way, Liam. If I was FSG now, and I think personally their business this summer reflects that, I think they're looking at the finances involved in football and are thinking there's serious amounts of money to be made, in this business, not just from the commercial and the ticket sales and everything like that, but from simply, prize money. I think it was £80 million that Liverpool got for finishing top of the Champions League group. I think it is close to like £70 million you get for winning the Premier League. I think it's like another £70 million on top of the Champions League group stage money that you get for winning the Champions League. You've now got Chelsea pocketing, I think is it close to like £150 million in total for their revenue for the Club World Cup. The money involved in winning football tournaments now and dominating football is just astronomical. And not only is the prize money alone, it's what comes from that success. Having that many trophy wins and having that many superstar players and having that many kind of superstars in your team, it creates bigger and better brand deals, it creates more fans across the globe, it creates more shirt sales, it creates more merchandise sales, it creates a bigger buzz around the football club, which ultimately ends up in more and more and more and more money. So yeah. Kenny on Twitter says, seen on Twitter now off Indy that United have asked about Gordon. Let's find that and have a little read of it. Here it is. Exclusive. Man United have asked Newcastle if all communications have ended with other clubs regarding Anthony Gordon. Man United believe Gordon will be the perfect replacement if Alejandro Garnacho was to be sold. Personal terms would be difficult due to him being a Liverpool fan. I think we'd get a similar situation with Gordon as what we've had with Hugo Ekitike and Florian Wirtz and Frimpong and Kirkes, where if Liverpool have expressed their interest in Anthony Gordon, he waits as long as physically possible for Liverpool to come in and do that deal. LiveBub on TikTok says, do you think Rodrygo will join? Personally, I've said this a few times now across the last 2 days. I don't want to be sitting on the fence, and this is what it's going to sound like, but I am so 50-50 on that one. I think if Real Madrid put a fair price, then I think Rodrygo would join Liverpool. If they don't, and they start talking silly money, you're talking like going into the £100 million mark, I don't see Liverpool paying that, because I believe the idea for Rodrygo is for whatever we get from Luis Diaz to go and put that over to Real Madrid for Rodrygo. So if they ask, say, 90 million for Rodrygo and we can't shift Luis Diaz for 90 million, I just don't see that happening. So we'll have to see. Kenny says, what do you reckon is a fair price for Rodrygo? I don't know. What do you guys think? What would you be happy paying for Rodrygo? YouTube chat, TikTok chat, what would you be happy paying for Rodrygo? LiveBub says 75. What about you, YouTube? What do you think? What's a fair price for Rodrygo? Kenny says 70. I think they're good prices, to be honest. I think a fair price, 85 to 90 million pound, I think is a fair price for Rodrygo. This is a player who's got basically 40 goals and assists in 60 Champions League games for Real Madrid before turning 25. It's a player who has come up clutch for them so many times, has still got, I think he's still got like 2-3 years left on his contract. He is absolutely unreal already, but he's probably still got bags of potential left to fulfill. Needs a situation where he is the star man. Liverpool can provide that. Liverpool can provide that star man status. I think if you could get 65 million for Diaz and go and get Rodrygo for 85 million, 100% you go and do it, because the price for Anthony Gordon's going to be similar. The price for Anthony Gordon's going to be around that 80 million pound mark, because because of Newcastle and Liverpool's relationship, because of the fact that they're no longer under PSR, so they're better players they're going to want to keep. Yeah. Honestly, I would be confident. I would be confident of Rodrygo if we start to see the Saudi Arabians get involved for Luis Diaz. 100%. Kenny says, sell Diaz if he wants to leave. Sell Darwin, what for? Bring Rodrygo in. I think they're going to try and get that 65 million back for Darwin Núñez. Anything more than that would be a massive bonus. Luis Diaz, again, similar price tag. Hugo Ekitike will come in to replace, Darwin Núñez, and like I say, it'll either be Rodrygo or Anthony Gordon more than likely for the Luis Diaz replacement. I think there is more of a possibility than Rodrygo than there is Anthony Gordon. I know some people think different, as what you probably would get with Anthony Gordon is he would probably try and force a move to Liverpool, whereas, Rodrygo's probably not going to hand in a transfer request and start, throwing his toys out of the pram. Whereas Gordon's already done it once to Everton, and if he can do it to get a move to Liverpool Football Club, then he's definitely going to do it to Newcastle, in my opinion. Liv Bob on TikTok says, would you keep Harvey? Not me personally, mate. I think Harvey's a great player and a top personality and a top kid to have around the club. But if the manager doesn't rate him and he's not going to get, he's not going to play and he's not going to get game time, that doesn't help him. And then we're sat on an asset that's worth a fair bit of money, so that doesn't make sense for us either. So, yeah. What about Tyler Morton? I think, again, same. Sell Tyler Morton, an asset that's worth money. We rejected, a hefty price for him from Bayer Leverkusen in the summer to keep him around, which seemed like a really weird thing to do, considering we had James McConnell as well, who the manager really highly rates. So that was a bizarre one. Yeah. Hi Dragon, I am not bad tar. How do you know I'm a football coach? Have you been in here when I've mentioned it before? I'm not bad tar, mate. How are you? Liv Bob on TikTok says you'd like to sign Hatto. I would like to sign Hatto as well, but the price tag for him and his current level and experience is just through the roof. I wouldn't touch it at that. I think if it was £30 million around that kind of fee and it was a decent gamble, then go for it. But anything more than that, I'm gonna say no. Oh, you used to play for SK. Oh, class, brilliant. I think have you been in here before? I'm sure someone in here has been in here before who said they used to play for SK. Gay talk has gone quiet. I expected that one to go quiet, to be fair, Kenny. The situation with Mark Gay is a case of the longer that goes on, the more it's in Liverpool and Mark Gay's favour. Right now, Crystal Palace are wanting astronomical amounts of money for a player who's only got 1 year left on his deal. Liverpool obviously aren't comfortable, going near that £50 million mark, probably wanting something more around £30 to £35 million. If there's no deal done now and it's in 2 weeks, then there's a high chance that the closer it gets to the end of the window, the more Crystal Palace are feeling the pressure to sell. As if he goes into the season with Crystal Palace and he's already stated that he's not signing a new deal, it's pretty obvious that he's going elsewhere on a free. So Crystal Palace are then sacrificing potentially 35 to 40 million pounds, and no matter who you are and no matter how much money you've got, I think that's pretty foolish to do. So yeah, I'd expect that one to heat up come August personally, and if they can get a replacement in like Diamande. Yeah, very good coach. I remember you coached me one day on a football game. Oh, thank you very much. That's a lovely comment to read. Do I think we'll get Isaac? Asks Switch at TikTok. No, I don't think we will. Although I am intrigued as to why it's gone quiet on Hugo Ekitike after this morning's news. but I don't think we'll get Isak, no. What could happen, though, is Liverpool could get a second striker alongside Hugo Ekitike this window, and I personally think that will be the case. I think that'll happen, but I think it'll be a striker later on in the window. It won't be a striker signed, next week, for example. But I think it'll be a striker come later in the window. Someone who has hopefully got, Premier League experience, a little bit older, someone that Ekitike can learn from, whilst also giving Liverpool a reliable rotational / backup option. So, that would be ideal. Who will it be? Weighing on TikTok says Mateta maybe. I think the price of Mateta will probably be too much for us to spend on a rotational backup striker. There's been shouts of Muniz at Fulham. Someone said on the TikTok the other day, which is quite good. That was a good shout. You've got Johan Visser at Brentford. You have potentially Ollie Watkins at Aston Villa. You have Vlahovic at Juventus. There's a few strikers out there who are probably looking at a move. So, we'll see. I'd just be a little bit concerned, only slightly, if especially if we didn't get Rodrygo. I'd be a little bit concerned if we went into the season and it was Ekitike and Chiesa, for example, for the positions through the middle. So yeah, I'm hoping we can do something there. Heard Nunes is in Napoli. No, Napoli have moved on to a new striker. I don't think they could afford Darwin Nunes. Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes, I think, have played a blinder in rejecting deals for Nunes and Diaz. As the Saudis, I think the Saudi Arabians were always going to come in once the market started doing things and dominoes started falling. It was always a cert that the Saudis were going to come in for some Liverpool players. So I think they've done the right thing there personally. You bring Vardy in as backup. I don't think Vardy's at that level, mate, because it's not only a backup, it's someone who's going to have to play Premier League and Champions League games and be able to, claim a stake for their own, but also even challenge Ekitike for a starting role. And Jamie Vardy's not doing that. I'd rather keep Chiesa, because at least then we can keep the song. Nicholas Jackson. Yeah, I mean, there's interest in Nicholas Jackson. Nkunku from Chelsea is probably more of a one to watch than Nicholas Jackson. Data team have liked him before. They were the ones. The data team wanted us to go for Nkunku before we went for Darwin Nunes. I think the Nicholas Jackson one is just going to be way too expensive for anyone really this summer. Yeah, Chiesa is the striker. Well, a few people have mentioned playing Chiesa at the striker, but again, I think that's just a case of like when we used to say like Danny Ward will be Liverpool's, starting goalkeeper come the new season. I think that's more. I think that's more trying to keep his value rather than it is a genuine option of him playing as playing as the striker. Personally, that's my opinion anyway. Calvert-Lewin, yeah, imagine that. Dominic Calvert-Lewin on a free. That would be jokes. That'd annoy Everton. Well, it'd definitely annoy Everton, but it'd annoy Newcastle as well, so I'd be all for that. Boom. Yeah, same again. If you are in the TikTok and you're enjoying this and you want to see more and you want to support me, then obviously along as well as gifts and things like that and the heart me's, if you click on my channel or go to my TikTok page and then click the little links in the bio and go over to my YouTube, we are streaming on there as well. That's the one that we're trying to grow. So if you can go over there and like the stream and subscribe, that'd be amazing. Honestly, it'd be fantastic. Ronaldo 2008 has been linked. Are you on about Cristiano Ronaldo? I think we need a new CDM. Yeah, potentially, Liv Bub. I think the situation with that has now changed. Dominic Szoboszlai has mentioned about wanting to play deeper. Slot obviously played him there against Brighton at the end of the season, and he did well. I think the situation with our midfield is now going to be a 4-2-3-1, with Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gravenberch and Endo rotating between the two who sit, with Salah, Wirtz ahead, and then Rodrygo, Diaz if he stays, Gakpo on the left wing, and then obviously Ekitike leading the line. So a CDM potentially, but I'd be surprised personally if that happened. Will Szoboszlai get sold since Wirtz is here? No, like I've just mentioned, I think Szoboszlai's role will change. Personally, I think Dom's much better when he plays deeper. Passing range is brilliant. The driving with the ball, his work rate, tackling capabilities, his leadership capabilities. I much prefer Dominic Szoboszlai when he plays deeper in midfield. His goal and assist output last season was half decent, and I still think he can do that from deeper areas on the pitch, / rotating with Wirtz in the 10. So yeah, for me, similar to what he does for Hungary, I'd be overjoyed with Dom, Mac and Grav rotating between the two sort of sitting midfielders behind Wirtz. If we are going to go 4-2-3-1, then the left winger, is key. Is really, really key. I'd imagine it would go more 4-2-4, as it has done before, out of possession, and it'd be Wirtz would push up with the striker, and the striker would drop a little bit, and you'd have, your left winger, Ekitike, Wirtz, and Salah as that blanket of 4. My concern slightly with it would be the overexposure to the fullbacks. Rodrygo, to be fair to him, works his socks off and will do that for the left back. Salah, obviously, we ask to defend less, so that makes that right hand side not overly changed, because if it's Grav or Szoboszlai there, then they'll just cover it as they usually do. But you've got to get that left winger right. What's our PSR like? Says Kenny on TikTok. Our PSR, I can't remember where it was. It was one of the like financial social media accounts who have mentioned that Liverpool's PSR is so healthy that even after the signings of Florian Wirtz, Hugo Ekitike, he mentioned actually Alexander Isak, who we know would be even more, but Hugo Ekitike, Frimpong, Kerkez, Mamadashvili, Woodhouse, all those signings we've made so far, Liverpool would still have roughly around about £200 million to spend before sales. So that's a really healthy position to be in, and that's what happens when you're the smartest, you're the smartest people in the room, and you're the smartest club in world football at the moment. Who's going to be our new free kick taker since Trent has gone? Well, Trent weren't really taking free kicks, was he? It was more going between McAllister and Szoboszlai. Trent had even got taken off corners last season because of how poor they were. So for me, I'd imagine it'll be a rotation between Wirtz, McAllister, Szoboszlai. If Rodrygo comes in, then it's probably Rodrygo because he's a ridiculous free kick taker. So, yeah, I don't think we're short of free kick takers. Madrid are trying to get Ebo on a free. Madrid try and get everybody on a free. They can have Ebo on a free. After this window, so this would be my calling to all Liverpool fans. After this window, I am no longer concerned about players that don't want to play for Liverpool Football Club. having seen Florian Wirtz, Hugo Ekitike, Alexander Isak, Milos Kerkez, Jeremy Frimpong, having seen players of this ilk, sit around and wait and reject other clubs just to play for Liverpool Football Club, I have no problems if you don't have that mentality, because that is the mentality that will help us dominate world football. That's the mentality that Jurgen Klopp built this team on. Don't be a passenger on the train. We need you to be behind it, and we need you pushing it. And they're exactly the players that we need, and they're exactly the players and the mentality that we're signing. It's why I'm so excited for Hugo Ekitike. So yeah, see you later, Dragon. Obviously, I don't know your proper name, but yeah, see you later, dude. Thanks for popping by. LiveBub says, any squad number change? I'd imagine whoever comes in to replace Luis Diaz, or maybe get Luis Diaz's number. Or it could be a case of Wirtz gets Luis Diaz's number, and then whoever comes in gets maybe Harvey Elliott's 19. The striker, you would imagine, will get Darwin Núñez' number 9. What other numbers is there? 3? I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah, I think there'll be a few. The players are currently wearing temporary, aren't they? Temporary numbers. Same again. If Robertson leaves, you'd imagine Kerkez gets the 26, or if Tsimikas leaves, you get the 21. So yeah, we'll see. The number 6 is free. I don't think anyone will take the number 6. I don't see anyone taking the number 6. Potentially Mark Gay, actually, if he comes in. Mark Gay might take the number 6 because that's what he's wearing, obviously, at Crystal Palace. The number 3, I believe, obviously, if Endo leaves, but Endo's pretty much said he's going to stay. So yeah, don't see that being free anytime soon. Obviously, like I say, fullbacks, it's 21 or 26. Definitely don't see Frimpong taking 66. So we'll have to find the number for Frimpong. Yeah. Who else is there that could potentially leave who's got a decent number? I mean, if Kanate leaves this window, then you could see then Mark Gay maybe getting the number 5. Who knows? Is Liverpool's number 2 free? Do we have a player who wears number 2? If we don't have a player that wears number 2, Frimpong could always get that, but I can't imagine Frimpong wearing number 2. Not many clubs have the number 2 anymore, do they? It's not really a number that you see being worn often, number 2. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. Oh yeah, of course. Gomez got the number 2. Yeah. What man? It's because we've not seen him for so long. Yeah, of course. Steve Wilson, are you considering? Oh, I'm a concern. So I don't know if you were in here before, Steve. I'm going to presume not. But in the last live stream earlier on today, we spoke about Hugo Ekitike, and his underlying numbers are brilliant. A lot of people basically have took the XG stat of his underperformance from last season, and just said, "Oh well, he's not a clinical finisher," when it's actually nonsense. His conversion rate since, I believe, the start of his career compared to all other strikers under 25 is better. So that's better than Alexander Isak, better than Darwin Núñez, etc. Without boring you, in layman's terms, Hugo Ekitike scores the chances that you expect a player to score. The chances where it's a bit 50-50, he performs averagely, like the majority of people. And then the chances where you're not really expected to score, he doesn't score. So he performs exactly how you would expect a striker to perform. Compare that to Darwin Núñez, for example. Núñez never scores the chances that he's not supposed to score, extremely rarely. The chances where it's 50-50, he doesn't score often. And then the chances where he's expected to score, he doesn't score. That's the big difference. Hugo Ekitike over his entire career is actually overperforming his expected goals, which obviously is probably not sustainable, but it's a decent sign. The more important stuff for Liverpool and their underlying stats will be the fact that, like I say, the chances that he gets given to him, he often puts away. His expected goals is quite low, due to the fact that he's creating a lot of the chances himself by picking the ball up in wide areas, trying to beat a player or two and then getting a shot off, which obviously lowers your XG. But in and around the box, first time finishes, finishing from crossing, finishes with the head, a finish where it's a touch and finish inside the box, Hugo Ekitike tends to perform pretty well with loads of room to still upscale that with improvements, obviously through his career, as he's only 23. So yeah, honestly, Hugo Ekitike, there is a reason that really smart data teams want him. He is ready to explode. Absolutely ready to explode. What do you think of Rodrygo, and when do you think he will come to the Reds? Well, first of all, England Lionesses. I know Lou's been watching it and he's a fan, so well done. I heard it was the worst penalty shootout we've ever seen, but at least they got the job done. What do I think of Rodrygo? When do you think he will come to the Reds? Asks the TikTok chat. Like I've said before, I think it's 50-50. I think it all depends on what kind of price Real Madrid put on Rodrygo. I would say Hugo Ekitike and the business for him needs to get done first before we see any kind of movement on the left winger situation. Personally, I'd imagine it'll be more Hugo Ekitike comes in, then the sales of Darwin Núñez and Luis Diaz will go through, and then we'll see more from there. So a little look on Twitter. See, it's just everyone going on about this penalty shootout. Darwin linked with Newcastle. Yeah, I saw that, Live Bub. I wouldn't pay much attention to that, to be honest. I'd imagine they'll probably look at a Sesko deal, maybe. 16 penalties were taken, 5 were scored. Need I say more? Probably not. That is not a good conversion rate when we're talking about conversion rates. That one is, that one's not very good. See if anyone's mentioning anything other than the terrible penalties. No, not at the moment. Same again. If you're in the TikTok, I'd really appreciate it if you clicked on the bio, went to my YouTube channel via the links. You don't have to watch on YouTube, but just subscribing would help, or giving the stream a like. That'd be amazing. So, thank you very much. We'll be signing off in a second. This was only a quick practice stream on the Mac. Seems to have gone well. Stream says it's healthy. Yeah, all good, I think. All good indeed. Right, signing off. YouTube was signing off. TikTok was signing off. First of all, again, thank you for the support. If you're enjoying this so far, and for the Reds being back, then please consider subscribing. It really helps the channel, and it will help us grow the community, and hopefully it'll mean that we can be more consistent with For the Reds, because ultimately it needs to grow for that to happen. And if you are enjoying the TikTok, thank you very much for the rose, Steve. I really appreciate that, my man. If you're enjoying on the TikTok, same again. Please hit a follow. We can get to 10k on that. That would be incredible. Just the last final one. Potential Rodrygo deal involve a stipulation on Konate. Do you think there'll probably be brief discussions about it, but I'd be very surprised. Liverpool have got a player in Ibrahim Konate that they're desperate to keep. Real Madrid have got a player in Rodrygo that they're not too sure where they see him fitting in the squad and are happy to sell for a good price. I don't think the two deals line up personally. But yeah, same again. Thank you very much. Signing off. See you later, TikTok, and goodbye, YouTube.